Hello people, welcome back to Marvelous Videos, where today we are going on a nostalgic ride to the 70s. Filled with themes of family, friendship, and a tinge of adventure, many TV shows of the 70s have defined the decade. But unfortunately, TV shows are products of their time and often do not hold up to changing times and sensitivities. When appealing to the masses, sensibilities are easily forgotten to pander to the popular beliefs of the audience. Today, let's go through some TV shows of the 70s that would have been highly controversial if they aired today. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
All day long on a job, working my butt off.
You're what about?
All in the Family. With 205 episodes in total, All in the Family aired between 1971 and 1979 and was based on the British sitcom Till Death Do Us Part. All in the Family explored family dynamics between Archie Bunker, a retired blue-collar worker and a World War II veteran who was a stubborn bigot and racist, his sweet wife, Edith, his equally stubborn but modern daughter, Gloria, and her husband, Michael Stivic. The show tackled the most controversial and difficult topics of conversation during those days, including, but not limited to, abortions, the Vietnam War, religion, impotence, and racism as a cultural clash between the baby boomers and the greatest generation. The show remains a treasured memory to 70s TV viewers, primarily because of the portrayal of Archie Bunker, the offensive and hot-headed patriarch of the family who doesn't hold back on his thoughts and opinions, by Carol O'Connor. All in the Family was controversial even when it first aired, because of all the taboo topics they talked about, but it was groundbreaking and opened up the television screen for more experimental shows. Although Archie was created as a satire of the bigoted views of the older generations, there were people in the audience that didn't laugh at him, but laughed with him. If aired today, Archie's character would be under a lot of fire for his uninhibited use of slurs. The show's humor can also feel outdated, as it often makes light of serious topics. Unless major changes were made to Archie's character, this show could not be aired today.
How'd you get your clothes on so fast? What? What? Don't act so...
Three's Company. Based on the British sitcom Man About the House, Three's Company was a farcical slapstick that aired from 1977 to 1984. Three's Company was about three friends, Janet Wood, Jack Tripper, and Chrissy Snow, who lived together as roommates in an apartment in Santa Monica, California. Since the owner of the apartment complex, Stanley Roper, does not allow unmarried men and women to stay together, Jack pretends to be gay. That is the problematic premise the show is set on. Even while ignoring this homophobic and outdated trope, the show does not hold up to today's standards and can appear slow at times. One of the most problematic episodes of Three's Company is And Justice for Jack, which aired as the second episode of the 5th season. The episode follows the story of Jack being groped and sexually harassed by his new boss and getting fired when he stands up against it. He takes her to court over it, but the judge dismisses the case and calls him a playboy. This episode proves the fact that the show was not capable of handling sensitive topics, be it homosexuality or sexual assault. Fantasy Island. Airing from 1977 to 1984, Gene Levitt's Fantasy Island made anyone who watched the show wish for the island to be real. The premise was pretty simple. Anyone can step into Fantasy Island, run by the elusive Mr. Rourke and his assistant Tattoo, and for a decent price, you would get to live out your fantasy. But there is always a catch. Your fantasy is never as you imagine it, and like a cruel genie playing on your words, the island would twist your dream into something that is very far from what you had hoped for. These fantasies could also take deadly turns, but Mr. Rourke always shows up to save the day. Fantasy Island would be a bit underwhelming for people used to modern special effects when you don't have to employ your imagination, but it is a great reminder of the cheesy flicks of the 70s. The fantasies are where the show fails the test of time. Often, men on this show have extremely sexual and exploitative fantasies that are downright misogynist. Tattoo, who was played by Hervé Villechaize, was often subjected to bullying for his short stature and was a victim of ableist humor. Any non-Western cultures are over-exoticized and are chock full of harmful stereotypes. The show does little to discourage racist and sexist viewpoints and would be disastrous on TV if aired today. Dukes of Hazzard. Filled with action and hilarity, Dukes of Hazzard ran 147 episodes long from 1979 to 1985. Starring Tom Wopat and John Schneider as cousins Luke and Bo Duke, the show followed their adventures in rural Georgia. Placed on probation for transporting moonshine, the cousins try to outwit corrupt Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane and County Commissioner Jefferson Davis, J.D. Hogg. Their ride, a 1969 Dodge Charger they named General Lee, became a symbol of the show. For many 70s kids, Dukes of Hazzard was an an essential TV show and is still hailed as a must-watch for all car lovers. Full of mindless buffoonery and the shenanigans of the cousins, the show is perfect to turn your brain off and enjoy. If made today, the cousins' car would have been named anything but General Lee. If you have never cracked open a history book, General Lee refers to the commander of the Confederate States Army, Robert E. Lee. The cousins also drive about with the Confederate flag emblazoned on the car. The romanticized representation of the American South ignores the racial tensions and the plight of racial minorities while touting a flag that supported and fought for the legality of slavery. Welcome back, Cotter. Gabe Cotter, a high school teacher, returns to teach a remedial class in his alma mater, James Buchanan High School. Nicknamed the Sweat Hogs, the remedial class is an ethnically diverse group of no-good loafers, and the only one rooting for them is Cotter. Premiering on September 9, 1975, Welcome Back, Cotter gave John Travolta his debut role and stars comedian and actor Gabriel Kaplan in the titular role. Welcome Back, Cotter achieved great popularity during its runtime, and comics, novels, and action figures were introduced to fulfill the wants of happy fans. The witty dialogues and talented actors are the sole reasons for the success of this show. Welcome Back, Cotter is comparatively progressive for their inclusion of characters with diverse backgrounds, cultures, and races in primetime television. Unfortunately, they do not handle this representation well, and non-white characters often have single dimensions and are bound by stereotypes. Characters were often turned into caricatures for cheap laughs, making it a truly painful experience to watch with a modern lens. Little House on the Prairie. A nostalgic family favorite, Little House on the Prairie was loosely based on the semi-autobiographical book series of the same name by Laura Ingalls Wilder. The show began airing in 1974 and finished its run with 208 episodes in 1983. The plot primarily focuses on the Ingalls family, which consists of Charles Ingalls, a farmer, his wife Carolyn, and their daughters, Mary, Laura, and Carrie. As the show progresses, the family gains new members like Grace, another daughter, and their adopted children, Albert, James, and Cassandra. The show is very heartwarming and sweet as it moves spectators to cry, laugh, and celebrate with the Ingalls. Although the show is considered a loose adaptation of the books, one thing that the show faithfully adapted from its source is the racism towards Native Americans. Academics have noted that the show only sees Native Americans through two stereotypes, either noble savages or dangerous outsiders. The Ingalls family is neither scared of them nor exoticizes their culture and traditions. This perpetuates negative connotations towards Native Americans and makes sure the show does not find a place in modern television. Maude. Maude is a spin-off of the popular show All in the Family, and the titular character, Maude Findlay, was Edith Bunker's favorite cousin. Created by producers Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin, the show starred acting powerhouse Bea Arthur as the protagonist and began airing on September 12, 1972. It wrapped up in 1978 with 141 episodes. Maude, as you might have guessed by the name, explores the adventures of Maude, a liberal woman who lives in New York with Walter Findlay, her fourth husband. We go along with Maude as she discovers issues of women's liberation and civil rights. Maude is perfect for any generation of women, as the problems she goes through in the show resonate with all women. When Maude first aired, she was hardly the strong and opinionated woman we know and recognize today. Initially, viewers saw her as a satire of the knee-jerk liberal. Maude's strong opinions could be quite polarizing in today's day and age. One of the episodes dealt with the issue of abortion, an issue which is prevalent to this day with Roe v. Wade being struck down. Airing Maude in a modern setting is likely to ignite strong debates and discussions, which networks usually try to avoid. Love, American Style. Love, American Style aired between 1969 to 1974 and was an anthology show that did not have a set cast. Produced by Paramount Television, the show starred various celebrity guest stars who presented short stories or vignettes about love, often in a humorous way. It is a great nostalgic watch for baby boomers. Seen through the modern lens, the show is quite controversial, but not to the scale that it would be cancelled. It did cause an uproar at the time of its release, thanks to its open portrayal and emphasis of sex. The gender roles might be a bit outdated, but the show was broadcasted during the beginning of the sexual revolution, when people were actively trying to destigmatize sex and remove the taboo associated with it. And if you are a 70s kid, you will most likely remember it exactly like that.
Yes, we are. Captain of this ship, I cannot permit this kind of behavior.
Well, as vice president of the line, I outrank you. Now shove.
The Love Boat. All aboard? The Love Boat is about Captain Merrill Steubing, who is played by Gavin MacLeod, and his crew aboard the Pacific Princess, a cruise ship. Created by Wilfred Lloyd Bombs for ABC, we see the crew and their guest stars have hilarious and fun adventures. Although nominated 4 times for the Golden Globes, The Love Boat never managed to win any, but it did sneak into TV Guide's 100 Greatest Episodes of All Time in 1997. It also bagged a People's Choice Award in the category Favorite New TV Comedy Program. With 9 seasons and 250 150 episodes, the show ran from 1977 to 1986. The show is not the worst there is, but it isn't the best either. You can see the punchline coming from a mile away, and the storylines get repetitive at times, but the ensemble cast makes it worth your while. A modern-day viewer might take one look at the show and vow never to turn it on ever again. The romantic elements of the show are questionable, with weird and outdated tropes. Men who don't seem to understand a no, and relentlessly pursue women, and misogynistic representations of women are rife in the show. The Love Boat is an insult to female representation, and they are often objectified, something to be won by the man, without any nuances of character.
Now, I would let him go unless you want to make medical history.
Happy Days. Happy Days is another one of the shows that defined the 1970s, running from January 15th, 1974 to July 19th, 1984 on ABC. The show was created by Gary Marshall. Happy Days is set in the 50s and is about a teenager named Richie Cunningham and his exploits. Richie's family is made of his dad, Howard, who runs a hardware store, his mom, Marion, a housewife, his little sister, Joni, and his older brother, Chuck. A prominent character of the show is Arthur Fonzarelli, fondly known as Fonzie, or the Fonz, Richie's best friend, who is a greaser and a mechanic. If you like old sitcoms, there is a high chance you have heard of Fonzie. He even became one of TV Guide's 50 greatest TV characters of all time. Happy Days has achieved a legendary status in the hearts of TV viewers, influencing Variety to rank it in the 100 greatest TV shows of all time. With a moral at the end of the show, the episodes were made for fun-filled family time and are a light-hearted and charming show. Despite Henry Winkler's charming portrayal of the Fonz, the things he says are extremely offensive. In the guise of locker room talk, Fonzie often talks down about women. The cast of Happy Days is also predominantly white for a show that claims to be putting forward an accurate representation of the 50s. There is no mention of racial segregation, nor is the struggle for civil rights portrayed in the show. The idealized representation of the 50s seems ignorant and erases the blood, sweat, and tears of those who were working towards social reform, all in the name of nostalgia. BJ and the Bear. A professional freelance trucker, Billy Joe BJ McKay, travels around the country in his red semi-truck with Bear, his pet chimpanzee. The episodes show BJ traveling to new areas and getting caught up in the crime there. He is usually saved by the local residents, who more often than not are beautiful women. This is what the 1979 NBC TV show called BJ and the Bear is all about. Created by Glenn A. Larson and Christopher Crowe, the show is a great reminder of the trucker craze of the 70s. With a premise like no other, BJ and the Bear is a quaint, charming show and a good throwback to the 70s. Unfortunately, the 70s was also a time when the male gaze was heavily pandered to, and this show is not an exception to that rule. The women in the show are shallow characters whose only role is to play eye candy to the male fantasy. This show in the 21st century would leave fans extremely disappointed and angry.
Chester, I'd like to confer with my associate again.
Absolutely.
Soap. Soap was created as a parody of daytime soap operas and ran on ABC from 1977 to 1981. The show touched on outrageous story arcs like alien abduction, amnesia, murder, hauntings, and organized crime. Set in the fictional town of Dunn's River, the story's focus is on sisters Jessica Tate and Mary Campbell, who looked after their families as matriarchs. Soap was controversial at times as they dabbled in taboo topics like infidelity, incest, impotence, organized crime, rape, and cults. Although critics of the show often state that most of it was shot for shock value, that is far from the truth, as Soap delivers an entertaining time with its memorable and lovable characters. For the 70s, Soap was groundbreakingly progressive, mainly because of Jody Dallas, played by Billy Crystal, who was a gay man. Jody was one of the earliest representations of queer characters, but unfortunately his sexuality made him the butt of many jokes. Stereotypes were used in abundance, and Jody's characterization was painfully bad. His relationships were never given the importance heterosexual relationships enjoyed. In one of the episodes, Jody tries hypnosis to convince himself to be a straight man. This storyline would win the ire of most, if not all, viewers today. Marvelous verdict. Often when we remember old movies and TV shows, we look back on them with rose-colored glasses of nostalgia, which erases everything that was wrong with them. But it is also hardly fair to judge old media with modern values. The shows and movies only represent the beliefs of the people who made them, and the time and society in which it was made in. Do you have any shows that might not pass the vibe check today? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.